My cousin was kicked out with her stuff in trash bags on her 18th birthday. We took her into our farm. But when her dad came back months later demanding she return, she said something that destroyed him and split the family forever. I'm 30 years old. I work managing the farm that Natalie and I bought like 4 years ago. And I need to get this story off my chest. Because what happened in the last few months basically destroyed my relationship with half of my extended family. But the thing is, we made a decision that we knew was going to cause problems, but honestly, I don't regret anything. Although sometimes I wake up at 3 in the morning wondering if I did the right thing, or if I just made things worse for everyone. I guess I should start at the beginning. Ruby is my cousin. Well, technically, she's my cousin Vincent's daughter, which makes her my second cousin or something like that. I've never really understood those family tree things. Vincent is like 56 years old now. He's the typical man who thinks being tough on his kids is the only way to raise them right. You know, one of those who believe showing affection is for the weak. He married Lorraine about 10 years ago, after his first wife died when Ruby was barely 8 years old. Lorraine never had kids of her own, and from the beginning it was clear she didn't want them, and she definitely didn't want to take care of a girl who wasn't hers. I grew up watching how they treated Ruby at family gatherings. It wasn't something obvious like physical abuse that you could report. It was more subtle than that, more insidious. It was the way Vincent always criticized her for everything, how he never had a kind word for her, how Lorraine literally ignored her as if she were invisible. At family dinners, Ruby always sat at the end of the table, quiet, eating fast so she could leave. The other cousins played and laughed, but Ruby was always apart, and when she tried to join conversations, Vincent would cut her off with some comment about how she should be studying or doing something productive instead of wasting time. Natalie and I bought this farm 4 years ago with the idea of turning it into the family gathering place, like the headquarters for birthdays, Christmas, New Year's, all those things. It's 300 acres with a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, enough space for everyone to come and stay overnight if they want. We put in a barbecue area, fixed up the old barn to have parties, planted fruit trees. The truth is, we invested a ton of time and money into making this place something special for the family. And it worked. For the first few years, the gatherings were amazing. Everyone came, kids ran around everywhere. It was exactly what we had imagined. But then, like at the beginning of this year, we were at a family dinner here at the farm. I think it was February or March, and Vincent announced very casually, like someone commenting on the weather, that Ruby was going to turn 18 inches July, and that exact day she would have to leave the house. Just like that, he said it, with Ruby sitting right there at the table. She didn't react, just kept eating with her head down, as if she already knew, as if she had been waiting for that moment. Natalie squeezed my hand under the table, and I felt my stomach turn. Some uncles laughed uncomfortably, thinking it was a joke, but Vincent kept talking about how he had already fulfilled his responsibility as a father, and that at 18 years old you have to learn to fend for yourself. And that night, after everyone left, Natalie and I stayed up late talking. She was furious. I was furious. But we also felt powerless because technically Vincent had the right to do whatever he wanted. Ruby was going to be legally an adult. But the thing is, Ruby had nothing. Zero savings because Vincent never let her work during school. Nowhere to go, no plan. He was literally going to throw her out on the street, on her birthday, without any preparation. And the worst part is, he was doing it because he could, because he would finally have the perfect excuse to get rid of her without anyone being able to say anything legally. Then Natalie said something that changed everything. She said, "We have 5 bedrooms and we only use 2. Why can't she stay here?" And I started thinking, because I knew that was going to cause huge family drama. But at the same time, I couldn't find a single valid reason not to do it beyond fear of Vincent's reaction and the rest of the family. So we decided, yes, that we would offer Ruby to stay with us as long as she needed. The next few months were weird. We kept going to family gatherings and acting normal, but I looked for moments to talk to Ruby alone. I told her our plan, and at first she didn't believe me. She literally thought it was a cruel joke, but I insisted. I told her we were serious, that she could come live with us, finish school, go to college if she wanted, whatever. She started crying. It was the first time I'd seen her show any real emotion in years. She made me promise her like 5 times, I wasn't joking. July came, and on Ruby's birthday, which fell on a Tuesday if I'm not mistaken, we went to pick her up early in the morning. Vincent and Lorraine had already left all her things in garbage bags in the garage. Garbage bags, can you believe it? As if she were literally garbage they were taking out. Ruby's eyes were red from crying so much, but she stood firm. We put everything in my truck, which is a 2019 Ford F-150, and brought her to the farm. That afternoon, Vincent called. I was expecting the call, obviously, but still, when I saw his name on the screen, I felt a knot in my stomach. I answered, and he didn't even let me say hello. He started yelling, asking what the hell I thought I was doing, who had given me permission to put his daughter in my house, that I was interfering in matters that didn't concern me. I tried to stay calm and told him Ruby needed a place to stay and we had space. He said if she was adult enough to make her own decisions, then she should manage on her own, that I had no right to play hero. The conversation ended with him telling me I was going to regret it, and hanging up. And the next few weeks were absolute chaos. Half the family stopped talking to us. Vincent, obviously, but also several uncles and aunts who thought we had crossed the line, that we were interfering in Vincent's parenting, that it wasn't our problem. They canceled the gatherings we had planned at the farm for August. Some cousins who used to come all the time stopped visiting us. But there were also people who supported us. My cousin Carolyn was incredible. She came to visit Ruby and brought her clothes and things she needed. My uncle Roger, who is my dad's brother, called us to say we had done the right thing even though it was difficult. But in general, the family was divided and things were very tense. In September, there was another uncle's birthday, Vincent's brother, and we decided to go because Ruby wanted to show she wasn't going to hide. It was horrible. Vincent and Lorraine were there, and when they saw us enter, the temperature in the room dropped like 10 degrees. Nobody knew what to say. Everyone was super uncomfortable. At one point, Vincent approached me and told me in a low but threatening voice to stay away from him and his wife, that I had chosen my side, and now I would have to live with the consequences. Lorraine didn't even look at Ruby the whole night. She literally acted as if she didn't exist. Like 2 weeks after that birthday, my uncle Roger called to warn me about something. He told me that several family members had been talking and were planning some kind of intervention, like a formal meeting where they were basically going to pressure me to kick Ruby out of the house. He told me my Aunt Diane, who has always been like the family mediator, was going to organize everything at her house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. An intervention. As if I were addicted to drugs or something. The meeting was on a Friday night at the end of September. Natalie stayed home with Ruby because we didn't want her to. I have to go through that. When I arrived at Aunt Diane's house, there were like 15 people there, including Vincent and Lorraine. Everyone sat in the living room, forming a semicircle, and I felt like I was on trial. Aunt Diane started by saying we were all there because we cared about family unity, and that my decision to take in Ruby had caused a serious division. Then, one by one, they gave their opinions. Vincent spoke first, obviously, saying I had crossed unacceptable boundaries, that I had undermined his authority as a father, that Ruby needed to learn to be independent, and that I was turning her into a dependent person by rescuing her. He said, if I really cared about her, I would let her face the consequences of real life, instead of giving her everything on a silver platter. Lorraine added that I didn't understand how difficult it had been to raise Ruby, that she was a manipulative child who knew exactly how to play the victim. Other uncles and aunts followed, with variations of the same theme. That I was destroying the family, that I was being selfish, that I had to think about the common good, that Ruby wasn't my responsibility. Some were softer, saying they understood my intentions, but that I had to find another solution. Maybe help her get her own apartment or something. But that I couldn't keep having her in my house because that was like a declaration of war against Vincent. When it was my turn to speak, I was shaking, not from fear, but from contained rage. I told them, Ruby is an 18-year-old girl who was emotionally abused for years, who was kicked out of her house without any preparation or support, and that if nobody else in this family was going to do anything about it, then I would. I asked them directly what they expected to happen to her if she didn't stay with us. And nobody had an answer. They just looked away. I told them the farm was my house, and I decided who lived there, and that Ruby was staying as long as she needed. Vincent stood up and said then, I had made my decision and not to be surprised if the family split permanently. Several people nodded. I stood up too and said, if defending a girl who needed help meant losing some family members' approval, then so be it. I left that house knowing things would never be the same again. The following weeks, Ruby started therapy. We found an amazing psychologist who specializes in family trauma and emotional abuse. The sessions were helping. You could see the change in Ruby, how she started talking more, smiling for real, planning her future. She applied to university, got a part-time job at a coffee shop in town. She was flourishing. But then Vincent found out about the therapy. I don't know how. Maybe someone from the family saw Ruby leaving the office or something. He called me furious, yelling that I was filling his daughter's head with lies, that therapists only make people invent traumas that don't exist, that I was deliberately trying to turn Ruby against him. I told him therapy had been Ruby's decision, and she was making incredible progress. And he told me I was a meddler who knew nothing about raising children and to stay out of it. He hung up before I could respond. In November, Ruby received her acceptance letter to State University. She was going to start in January of the following year with a partial scholarship that covered like 60% of tuition. We decided to have a celebration dinner. We invited the cousins and family members who had supported us. Caroline came, Uncle Roger and his wife, some others. We did a big barbecue, bought a cake, decorated everything. Ruby was radiant. It was like seeing a completely different person from the quiet, sad girl we picked up in July. We were in the middle of dinner when we heard a car arrive. Natalie looked at me, worried, because we weren't expecting anyone else. I went out to see, and it was Vincent and Lorraine. They got out of the car, which was a gray Toyota Camry, and Vincent had that face he makes when he's about to cause a scene. I asked them what they were doing there, and Vincent said they came to talk to Ruby, that they had heard about the university and wanted to fix things. I didn't believe them for a second, but Ruby came out of the house before I could stop her. Vincent saw her, and his expression changed to something almost kind, which made me even more nervous. He told Ruby they had been thinking things over, that maybe they had been too hard, that they wanted her to come back home so they could be a family again before she left for university. Lorraine even smiled, though it was the fakest smile I've ever seen in my life. Ruby looked at them for a long moment, and I could see she was processing everything. Then she said something I'll never forget. She said, "You made it very clear to me in July that I wasn't part of your family, that I was a burden you wanted to get rid of. You kicked me out with my things in garbage bags as if I were literally garbage. For 10 years, Lorraine treated me as if I were invisible, and Dad never had a kind word for me. Never. Now that I'm doing well, now that I have a future, you want me to come back. Why? So you can control me again? To make sure I'm not happy?" Vincent tried to interrupt, but Ruby didn't let him. She kept talking, with a trembling but firm voice. She said Patrick and Natalie had given her something she never had at home, which was unconditional love and real support, that here she could be herself without fear of being constantly criticized. That she had started therapy and was working on healing all the damage they had caused her, and that no, she wasn't coming back. Vincent completely changed. He turned red and started yelling at her that she was ungrateful, that after everything he had done for her, keeping her and giving her a roof for 18 years, this is how she repaid him. Ruby started crying but stood firm. Lorraine said something about how Ruby had always been dramatic and difficult. That's why things didn't work. I couldn't take it anymore and told them to leave my property. Vincent approached me, and for a second I thought he was going to hit me. He was so close I could smell his cheap cologne. He told me I had destroyed his family, that someday I would realize the mistake I had made. I told him the only mistake I saw was his as a father. Lorraine pulled Vincent by the arm and they left, but before getting in the car, Vincent yelled at Ruby that was it. They had tried. She had chosen, and now she would have to live with her decision. Not to look for him when things got difficult. They left, and Ruby broke down. Natalie hugged her while she cried, and everyone who was at dinner came out to support her. Caroline told her she had been very brave. Uncle Roger told her he was proud of her. We went back inside and tried to continue with the celebration, but the atmosphere was already ruined. Ruby apologized like 1,000 times for causing problems, which broke our hearts because she had nothing to apologize for. It's been like 5 months since that day. Ruby started university in January and she's doing amazing. She has a GPA of almost 4 and already made new friends. She's still in therapy and says she's finally feeling like a whole person. She got a better job tutoring school kids. They pay her pretty well. She's saving to eventually get her own place. Though we've told her 1,000 times there's no rush. She can stay as long as she wants. Vincent and I haven't spoken again. Half the family still has us blocked. Family gatherings are now divided into 2 groups, those who support us and those who support Vincent. And it's weird and sad, but it is what it is. Natalie and I had several conversations about whether we did the right thing, about whether all the drama was worth it. But every time we see Ruby smile for real, every time we hear her talk excitedly about her plans for the future, every time she thanks us for believing in her, we know yes, it was totally worth it. The farm is no longer the family gathering center we imagined it would be. Not everyone comes like before, but it became something better, a safe place for someone who really needed it. And honestly, I prefer having a smaller family that really cares about doing the right thing than a big family that stays quiet when someone is being mistreated. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, if someday Vincent will realize the damage he caused, or if the family will reunite somehow. But for now, we're fine like this. The 3 of us, building something new in this place that was supposed to be for everyone but ended up being exactly for who needed it most. And that's enough, I suppose.